Welcome to Unpacking Peanuts, the podcast where three cartoonists take an in-depth look at the greatest comic strip of all time, Peanuts by Charles Schulz.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is Unpacking Peanuts. Today we're finishing up 1986, or at least we think we're finishing up 1986. I'll be your host for the proceedings. I'm also a cartoonist. My name's Jimmy Gownley. I did books like Amelia Rules, 7 Good Reasons Not to Grow Up, and The Dumbest Idea Ever. Joining me as always are my pals, co-hosts, and fellow cartoonists. First, he's a playwright and a composer, both for the band Complicated People as well as for this very podcast. He's the original editor of Amelia Rules, the co-creator of the first ever comic book price guide, and the creator of such great strips as Strange Attractors, A Gathering of Spells, and Tangled River. It's Michael Cohen.
Say hey.
And he's the executive producer and writer of Mystery Science Theater 3000, a former vice president of Archie Comics, and the creator of the Instagram sensation Sweetest Beasts. It's Harold Buchholz.
Hello.
So guys, since it's episode 3 here of 1986, and we haven't done the Anger and Happiness Index, why don't we start off with that? Harold, what do you got for us?
Okay, well, what do you guys think about this year? Is it pretty much changing from previous year? There's a different vibe or feel to it, or does it seem like it's even keel? Or what's the vibe for Anger this year?
I didn't get anything particular. I think I'd just go for roughly what we had last year.
Okay, Jimmy?
I'm going to say the same. I think it's the same.
Well, you guys are right. We had 70 strips with characters showing anger in 1985, and we had 74 in 1986. So that's pretty even keel. I think it was, he's 81 the year before, so he's pretty much in the same space when it comes to character emotions. How about for happiness? Does it seem like that is changing, or do you think that is pretty much?
No, I feel it's the same. I think it's about the same. I don't feel a huge shift from last year to this year.
Same.
You're right again. It's 113 happy strips, a lot more than anger strips, which has been a trend for quite a while. It was 108 in 85, 112 in 84, so very consistent. Although I must say that there is a little bit of a change. The particular character this year was happy in every single strip that character appeared. Can anyone guess who that is?
Who's happy this year?
Someone was happy in every single strip.
I am gonna say it's gotta be Tapioca Pudding.
You got it in one. Tapioca Pudding really moved the numbers for Schulz and happiness this year, which would suggest otherwise it would have been a little bit down. But yeah, we haven't met on the podcast Tapioca Pudding, but she is coming. And boy, if you've never experienced Tapioca Pudding, you're in for a treat.
Do you guys like Tapioca Pudding? I mean the actual pudding.
I could barely remember it.
Yeah.
No.
I like the love.
I like bubble tea, which has the tapiocas in it, but I don't like it in pudding.
Yeah, isn't it weird that the pudding kind of went out of style when any other pudding was available? But then you start dropping it into tea, and oh boy, it's a thing.
Very strange. All right, well, with that in mind, let's hit the strips. July 6th, it's a Sunday. Peppermint Patty is writing her dad at home. Dear Dad, well, here we are at Camp Remote. Marcie, sitting next to her, says, I think they pronounce it remote, sir. Now they're walking, and Marcie says to her, which reminds me, I have a problem of my own. Now they're in the mess hall, eating lunch. I swear, sir, that I can hardly stand it. I may just push him in the lake or something. Now they're walking outside the mess hall. After all, I came to camp to have a good time, didn't I? Why should I put up with him? And now they're out by the dock, and Marcie spies who she was talking about. Look, there he is. I'll show you. Hey, kid, says Marcie, and the kid is just standing at the end of the dock, and he says, what? Marcie, that did it. And he yells, og, as she pushes him into the lake. And then Marcie says to Peppermint Patty, see, he keeps talking to me.
This is the rare case where the best punchline's in the first panel.
Remote. I love the little drawing of this poor kid just hanging on to the end of the dock in the last panel, soaking wet.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice him there. I did not notice the little kid crawling out of the water.
Oh, Yeah, what is going on with Marcie here? She is just reading his signals.
Well, this is part of a sequence, right? He was in the previous couple of strips, right?
No.
Earlier years, there was a kid like him. Was it a different kid in the previous summer
That's
camp?
kind of distinctive hairstyle.
Mm-hmm. Makes me think of Roy, a blonde Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has Roy vibes. That's where all those
Or
characters.
Charlie Brown with a rooster thing on his head.
July 9th. The kids are at camp now, and this is a survival camp. And we see Sally in panel 1. She is covered head to toe in her camouflage outfit. And she says, "What kind of clothes are these? I feel ridiculous." And Linus says, "These are camouflage suits. If you wear a camouflage suit, no one can see you." Then the last panel, Sally's looking at herself in a little hand mirror, and she says, "I spent all my life trying to be seen, and now they want me not to be seen?"
This is a good sequence. And it's mostly Linus and Sally who haven't been interacting much lately.
I forgot how big the survival stuff was in the 80s, like post Rambo.
Oh man.
Got lots of kids in my area where I grew up, wore camouflage. I never had anything, but they were all.
But they actually went out shooting squirrels and stuff.
Yeah, but also just walked around wearing it too.
This does suggest that something about the parents of this neighborhood, they seem to get together and decide.
Yes.
Somebody is a ringleader, I think, and is getting the other parents to sign all of the kids up to go to this camp. They probably get a discount on the bus. Either that or Neighborhood Watch is sponsoring them going into this survival camp. I don't know.
It's funny. We one of the big highlights of like summer was there was a place called the Hometown Auction, and it was like a flea market, and that was the closest place I could go to get comic books, like alternative comic books, stuff from the comic book stores. And you could also get a survival knife there because they'd all kind of like you get like throwing stars and nunchucks. And I got one.
Oh, throwing stars are creepy.
Oh yeah. Well, the survival knight originally sold for $65 according to the box, but it was yours for a low price of $5.95.
Wow. Well, that's a discount.
You cannot cut anything if your life depended on it, but it had a compass in the pommel.
Oh, no. Nice.
You could take the pommel off, and it had some needle and thread, in case you needed to stitch up a wound. It had a tiny little wire for cutting down trees.
But it didn't actually work. Did the compass have northeast, west, and George or something?
Yeah, the compass was vague at best. It just gave general suggestions, but it was cool because you could keep it on your belt and feel like Frodo for a while.
General suggestions. It's like, try again.
Yeah, right. It was a magic 8-ball actually. And
that's crazy.
And a little sharpening stone that did not sharpen anything.
I remember in the early 90s going into Times Square with somebody on a work outing, and we went into one of those. This was a very different Times Square than anybody who's been there today. And they had this shop that had like swords that were probably 4 feet long, and they had throwing stars for sale there. And the lady I was with was asking to bring all these things down, and there's just guys like, oh yeah, can I wield that sword? And the guy's bring it down. He's like just running the sword around in the air. And it's like, I don't think I want to be in here any longer.
Like a D&D store.
Yeah. Michael had a bunch of swords in Bellingham.
We had our magic blades.
Well, and didn't you have a bazooka at one point from your dad's store?
No, I had a tank periscope.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
A tank periscope. Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big was that?
It was a box around the size of a cereal box. And there's a little thing you're looking in the bottom, and you can see out the top. I mean,
nice.
it's a lens, so you look in the bottom, but you hold the top up over the edge. And anyway, that was fun. I don't know what happened to them.
That's cool.
Probably threw it away.
July 13th, it's Sunday's page, and Charlie Brown is sitting out on a log at night, it looks like. And I'm looking at it in black and white. And then on tier 2, it starts up with Peppermint Patty and Marcie sitting on the dock at camp, looking out across the water. And Marcie says, "There's a boys' camp across the lake, sir. Do you think Charles is there?" And then Marcie yells out, "Charles, are you over there?" Pepper and Patty is upset, and she says, "Marcie, that's embarrassing." But Marcie doesn't mind. She keeps yelling, "If you're there, give us a call." Then Pepper and Patty says, "They probably wouldn't let him use the phone, Marcie." And then Marcie yells, "Send us a postcard." And Peppermint Patty says, "A postcard would take a week to get here." Then Marcie yells, "Then send us a message by personal courier." Peppermint Patty says, "Personal courier?" And then the last panel, we see Charlie Brown has apparently done just that, with Snoopy arriving with a message.
Wearing a little hat,
Yes.
little messenger hat.
I like the drawing of the camp. I especially like that next to last panel. That looks really
It's
good.
beautiful. That is one of the most detailed panels I remember him ever drawing. It's got a lot of detail. You got the ripples of the water around the edges of the dock. You have this really nicely done boat. I mean, what I was wondering, he has that tremor as we've been talking about, but at least in the version I'm looking at with that boat that has these parallel curved lines, it's like one of those wooden rowboats. Mm-hmm. It looks incredibly clean. I'm wondering if he used what do they call those flexible curve things?
French curve.
A French curve to kind of help him on that one, because that's not easy thing to draw with a tremor, and it seemed like he wanted to make it look really, really nice.
Yeah. It's hard to ink with a French curve if he was doing that, especially with no practice. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Oh no, they're hard. Yeah.
Especially if we're using a dip pen, because if you have any kind of, if you hold it wrong and there's a little bit of space in between the French curve,
just run under the French curve. Yeah.
Just
and you'll have a Charlie Brown smudge. Yeah.
Yep. And Charlie Brown's still sticking with whatever pen he's using here in 1986. He is still smudging. It's amazing. July 20th, Snoopy is sneaking out. He's peeking out from behind a little end table. And then in the next panel, he's scurrying along around on the floor on his belly. And then the Sunday strip really starts up on the next tier with him about to bite it out of Linus's hand. And he says, "Watch it, Beagle. If you touch this blanket, I'll destroy you." Linus continues, "I'll destroy you and all your cousins, and the place where you were born, and all the records at the courthouse. Small craft wardings will be posted along both coasts. I will pounce on you like the last days of Pompeii. So back off." And then Snoopy, who has been frozen there with his mouth open this whole time, backs off for one panel. In the next panel, he backs right out of the house, across the yard, past Lucy, and right back up to his doghouse, where, lying on top, he thinks to himself, "When I back off, I back off."
That is good cartooning.
Isn't it?
To have a dog lying on his stomach, pushing with his back legs backwards. But it reads really easy.
It does. And that seems like an impossible thing to draw. Yeah, it really does. And it's just funny that he goes all the way back out to his doghouse. I really like that.
Yeah, that's great. I went back and looked in the Alpha of the online version that I was looking at, that Michael compiled for us, to the Fantagraphics book. And those lines on the boat, that little rowboat, are hand-drawn, and they do have a tremor to them. It's amazing how it disappears in the reproduction when it's online. Wow. And probably also was disappearing somewhat in the newspaper, because back then they were using those old web plates that kind of muddied things a little bit. But again, this shows what this guy knows about reproduction.
This is also a scenario we haven't seen in like 20 years, where Snoopy was obsessed with grabbing the blanket.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Which kind of disappeared because Linus supposedly stopped sucking his thumb and holding the blanket.
Maybe he doesn't do it in public anymore.
Yeah, I think it's just that he doesn't do it in public. He never renounces it. But yeah, he does it. He does draw it a lot less. I know that Schulz even mentions that in the Gary Groth interview, which comes out in 97, I think. So, about a decade ahead of this, but he was even then thinking they would never have Linus renounce the blanket outright. You can definitely see the tremor, though, in this, obviously those fence posts on that last tier. That'll get you.
Yeah.
July 21st. Peppermint Patty's on the phone, and she's calling someone, and she says, yeah, my dad and our teacher think maybe I need a tutor. Well, to help me get a better start in school this year, she continues. But then in the third panel, whoops, someone's at the door. It's probably my tutor. Peppermint Patty opens the door, and it is, in fact, her tutor. And the kid just says, hi, are you the dumb one?
This is a new character. I don't know if he's around.
It really made me laugh. Just, hi, are you the dumb one?
So this is Maynard, and he's a character design. Schulz has been doing a lot of things with eyes this past year in particular. He's some really unusual eye choices. He started it kind of with Spike, and now we're seeing character expressions, even for the regular characters, that sometimes are a little off-putting to me. They're just a little, I don't know. Sometimes he'll use really, really rough lines, because usually his eyes traditionally were very crisp. It's like he made sure that he had a very crisp looking pupil for an eye or whatever. Now he's got some really odd looking eyes that he's drawing, including ones that look very shaky when some character is frustrated or depressed or whatever. They're sad or something about something. He's trying to convey that emotion through a roughness of line. Now here you've got this kind of half opened eye. If you imagine a Garfield eye where you erase the top hemisphere.
Yeah, or it's a Doonesbury look, really, the flat top line and the curve underneath.
And this is something I remember from getting around this time in comic strips. There were a lot of characters who had the kind of the half opened eye, like Garfield and Doonesbury, where the characters look like they're just kind of bored with life. And I didn't like it. I remember I did not like it, and wasn't really particularly happy to see it in here as well.
Oh, really? I love that look. I think it's a good look. Because I don't think it's bored with this kid seems at life so much as it's a certain cynicism, which you also might not like, but I feel
it's the snob. I mean, it really, he's looking down at her.
Yeah,
even though he's looking up.
Yeah,
but you don't see the eyebrow, so I find that a little curious.
Well, there is. Do you think it's an eyebrow? He's got some really weird nesty hair, which we're going to see later in another character rerun. But it almost looks like he has two eyebrows to me.
Yeah, I thought that was just stray hairs.
Yeah, I thought that was stray hair, but it could be. That's always also tough too, because it could be that the eyebrow is meant by like the lid of the eyebrow and one become one in the cartoon, as if the brow is furrowed to give that.
But his personality reads clearly.
Yes, exactly. And I think it would clog it up if you drew another line on top of that. I think it does read clearly.
Yeah, it looks like Schulz he's giving him like a double brow, because I'm looking at future strips and he always has those two lines. And if he's a little upset, they drop down.
So
it's an interesting choice. I've never seen anybody do that to represent an eyebrow before.
Do you think the second one is like on the other side of his head? Like his other eye?
It's almost weird. Suggesting like a furrow, but there's not a curved line to connect the two around the top of his head to make it look like a furrow. But it gives this extra expression, and I guess it kind of adds to that kind of haughty feel.
July 30th. So this is the end of that sequence, and Peppermint Patty is calling Charlie Brown to tell him how it went. And she says, so I don't have a tutor anymore, Chuck. Do you think I'm dumb, Chuck? Charlie Brown says, no, not at all. Actually, I think you're very smart. This thrills Peppermint Patty, who says, that's nice, Chuck. That's really nice. That's sweet and really nice. And then the last panel, a deflated Peppermint Patty says, sometimes I wish I couldn't strike you out on 3 straight pitches.
That's great.
That's a callback. She has often said, well, not often, but several times said, she can strike Charlie Brown out on 3 straight pitches.
Yeah, he could have been the perfect boyfriend except for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's right. She is smart. She's got, that whole thing on the dock with Marcie, where Marcie's doing all these impractical suggestions for Charlie Brown to get in touch with her, and Peppermint Patty, she's on it. So, you can't mail a postcard. It's going to take too long.
Except she went to dog training school and didn't realize it.
Well, there's that.
What do you think of all the black It looks like milk kniff black he's using in this. Not filling it all in, you know what I mean? I guess that looks like a leather chair Charlie Brown's on almost or something.
I'd say the Charlie Brown chair is the one that works the least well for me.
Yeah.
It's a little too random in the shading.
Yeah. September 4th. Okay, now here we are. Here is the big moment.
God.
New character alert. It's Tapioca Pudding. So she's standing in front of class and she says, "Good morning. I'm new here in this school. I shall now introduce myself." And she does in panel 2. "My name is Tapioca Pudding. With my name, my blonde hair, and my smile, my dad says we can make $1 million. And then in the last panel, she says directly to Linus, apparently, who's sitting in his desk, "My dad is in licensing."
This almost reads to me, when I saw this, I went like, no, this can't be true. This is almost like a Mad Magazine parody of Peanuts.
Right? Yeah, that Schulz is doing it himself is pretty neat. I really enjoy it. It's a repetitive sequence, but it didn't get old for me.
But also, I mean, this was Frida's shtick.
Mm-hmm.
When Frida was introduced, all she had was talking about her curly hair. And to everyone she met, she talked about her naturally curly hair. And this girl has naturally curly hair and is talking about her hair.
Yeah, and that gigantic smile. And it's funny, we know that Schulz was getting a little bit of heat for the licensing, maybe in smaller circles, but he was probably getting back to him that certain cartoonists were like, he's selling out or whatever. And it's interesting to show that Schulz is like, I'm not interested in the licensing. The licensing is the least interesting thing to me. And anybody who's into licensing is a little messed up.
Yeah, it seems extremely pointed. I mean, it feels like he was definitely having a bad day about licensing or a couple bad days.
Right. And we talked about this before, that the version of Peanuts that you experience in licensing, if you never read the strip, is much different than the feeling of the strip that you get if you just read the strip. And her gigantic smile, and, this, when she presents herself to the world, "My name is Tapioca Pudding." She's got her arms outstretched. She looks like a little plush toy, a little doll. And I think it's funny and fascinating, and I think this was actually probably a smart move for Schulz to do that. If this is how he was feeling about it, he didn't really say anything. He's making fun of it at the same time. He's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy.
I'm obviously not going to stop doing the licensing.
I wouldn't be happy if she was a regular character.
No, I don't even feel like he intended her to be an ongoing thing. It feels like this feels like Joe Rich Kid. Like, hey, I'm coming in here to do my bit.
Well, he's done that so much with recent characters. They are so one note. You got Maynard, the tutor. You're not seeing sides of characters the way we've gotten to know Linus and Lucy and Snoopy and Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty.
This is like a 1 week affair here.
Yeah, it seemed like as he was developing new characters, less and less, maybe because it wasn't necessary, because he had these nuanced characters that whenever he introduced somebody else, it had to represent something they didn't. And so it was one thing, and Tapioca Pudding obviously could have developed a personality and had a few more things going for her, but that's not what Schulz is doing.
Yeah. She does have the unique ability to levitate, though.
Yeah, right?
I mean, there's
fourth
something,
panel.
And the second one too. Where Linus is sitting, you don't see the bottom of the desk, but you see her feet at the same level as the middle of the desk.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me because it's just faked perspective. But the last one, she's definitely floating at his middle of his desk, or at least it looks to me more that way. But what are you gonna do? September 6th, there's more Tapioca Pudding. She comes up to Snoopy and says, "Hi, my name is Tapioca Pudding. Someday, wouldn't you like to own a lunchbox or t-shirt with my picture on it?" Snoopy just walks away looking a little dismayed. And Tapioca yells after him, "Licensing is very big these days."
So we each of us picked different. Well, I picked one and Harold picked the other. I don't think she's worth 2, but she's got.
Well, there's 3, because here's September 12th. Charlie Brown's watching TV. He's in the beanbag chair, and Sally says to him, I can't believe it. I just saw Linus walking along with that grape jelly person. Charlie Brown says, her name is Tapioca Pudding. Sally yells, Tapioca Pudding? Blueberry muffin? What's she doing with my boyfriend? And Charlie Brown, not really reacting to any of this, says from his beanbag chair, I didn't know you were the jealous type. And then an irate Sally, red-faced with rage, says, I keep it all inside.
Yeah, this is a real anger.
Yeah.
I've never seen anyone so angry.
Oh, she is seething. Yeah, no, Tapioca Pudding, Blueberry Muffin. Yeah, was this the era of Strawberry Shortcake, the little doll Strawberry Shortcake?
Yes, it was. Oh, yes, it was, right? Let's see when that show and stuff was on.
It started. I think it started as like. Did it start as a doll or something, and then, and it genuinely was a licensing thing, where let me check on this, make sure I'm right about this. But I got the feeling like every once in a while somebody comes up with a doll, and then they try to build the world around it, but it's from a toy company instead of a creator of a character.
No, originally comes from greeting cards.
Interesting. So I'm guessing there was was a singular person who had an idea, and then some greeting card company maybe took them on.
Strawberry Shortcake is a cartoon character used in greeting cards. This is from Wikipedia. Strawberry Shortcake is a cartoon character used in greeting cards, originally published by American Greetings. The line was later expanded to include dolls, posters, and etc. Muriel Farion is the illustrator who did the concept art in the late 70s.
Okay, so somebody genuinely did create this as their own thing to represent something, probably not, it wasn't coming from a corporate, hey, we need a food-based toy.
No, it was. The American Greetings requested them to make this.
Well, it's interesting. It says it was originally created by Barbie Sargent, who was working as a freelance artist for American Greetings. So she was maybe pitching ideas to them. I don't know. And the fascinating thing on Wikipedia is that the creator is not highlighted in blue. So there's no link to Barbie Sargent. There's no story about Barbie Sargent. It's all about the corporate Strawberry Shortcake. Interesting. Oh, and the creator did not do the finished art. That's also interesting. So yeah, maybe it was sold as a, hey, here's a property.
Rex Connors, American Greetings staff art director, knew the card was popular and determined this was due to the strawberry motif. So he requested to create 4 cards with a strawberryish outfit. Yeah, it's just something that grew out of the, day-to-day stuff of American Greetings, I guess. Moving on. So that's, Tapioca Pudding is something else. September 23rd. Linus and Sally are hanging out at the Thinking Wall, and Linus says, did you know I have an uncle who's in a stage play? He says an actor's biggest fear is being in a turkey that folds. Or the third panel, they think about it. And then Sally says to Linus, how do you fold a turkey?
English is such a great language. Most of it doesn't make any sense.
I was thinking, because you said that when we were talking about she's a real sharp mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was thinking there's a bunch of other versions of sharp that we didn't even mention that it could have meant in that episode. It really is a crazy language.
Yeah. This one made me laugh out loud, just looking at Sally asking, how do you fold a turkey? It's great.
We're seeing a lot of Linus and Sally this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's nice.
It is nice. Well, how about we take a break here right now and then come back in a few and finish up 1986, get our VIPs and strips of the year, etc. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. Have you seen the latest Anger and Happiness Index? Have you admired the photo of Jimmy as Luke Skywalker or read the details of how Michael co-created the first comic book price guide? Just about every little-known subject we mention is referenced on the Unpacking Peanuts website. Peanuts' obscurities are explained further, and other stories are expanded more than you ever wanted to know. From Albert Payson Terhune to Zipatone, Annette Funicello to Zorba the Greek. Check it all out at unpackingpeanuts.com/obscurities.
All right, and we are back. So, Liz, I'm hanging out in the mailbox. Do we got anything?
We do. We heard from a couple of our regular listeners. Paul Hebert writes and says, please tell Jimmy that I'd love to hear his take on or have a conversation about the BD in Iraq arc from Doonesbury someday.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we should do that. I love it. It's real good.
Is that an arc, or is that just like an ongoing sequence for years?
Yeah, but I'm talking specifically about the part where BD gets wounded, and it does go on, but you can follow it as a story. It's real good.
Okay, I only know the Vietnam stuff. I don't think I knew the Iraq stuff.
Oh yeah, I read it religiously. Then it was a part of the website Slate, and it would come up every day, and I thought it was really, really good. So yeah, well, great. Well, thanks. Maybe we can find a way to sneak that in at some point.
And he adds, thanks again to all of you. I'm still very much at the beginning of the process of learning about how cartooning works. And every episode...
Me too, buddy.
Me too.
And every episode you do brings me a little bit further along, making me want to learn a whole lot more. Be of good cheer.
Oh, be of good cheer, Paul.
Cheer.
And then Puy McCleary, who told us his idea for the Peanuts Gallic Wars strip, and you told him to go off and make the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
He says, you mean I have to be the one to draw Snoopy's memories of fighting in the Gallic Wars just because it was my dumb idea?
Yes, that's how it works.
So he writes it. He sends us a script. And I will try I will try to do it justice. It's a Sunday, so it has the throwaway panels. And he goes, okay. Anyway, the name of the comic would be Penates, not Peanuts, as De Penates were the little household gods in those times.
Yeah.
And here's how a Sunday strip could go. Panel 1, title, Penates. Panel 2, Snoopy says, Hail Caesar, fellow legionnaires. He continues, here's Snoopy, the centurion, posing beside the newly built Roman fortress. Panel 3. He says, by Hercules, we sure build a lot of fortresses and bridges in the army. Then he says, now I'm part of the Dawn Patrol. We're out to hunt down Lord Vercingetorix and his druids. Next panel. I cross over the enemy lines. I see a network of wicker men and obelisks. Suddenly, blue-painted Gauls appear. They're everywhere. I lift up my gladius and shield. The next panel, you see Linus stabbing with a toy sword. Stab, stab, stab. Then Snoopy falls off his doghouse and says, it'd be safer if I just became a gladiator.
Aw, nice.
Wow. Good job.
Snoopy's.
Yeah, go for it. And deal with the lawyers later.
Exactly. Is that it? That we got?
Yep, that's it.
Well, you can get away with fanfic if you don't draw it, I think.
Ah.
Oh,
Is
you
that
can.
right?
They don't even. They barely police anything. These. I'm not. They. I'm not saying Peanuts. I don't.
Jimmy
know.
Ganley is not a lawyer, is not offering legal advice.
I am not a legal professional, but you obviously see, tons of bootleg stuff online, everything on a convention, all those fan art is just, I think at some point they realized it's unpoliceable. So we're just going to assume it's marketing.
Yeah, as long as you don't make money, you're probably okay.
Can you imagine a prison full of fanfic artists?
Would be amazing. I remember going to Baltimore once and seeing someone who had it was like 4 booths, put together, like a quadrant of tables. I don't know how much that must have cost, but it was like, photographs from movie stills that were just like highly contrasted out in Photoshop and then put slapped color behind it. And that was like their fan art booth, but it was just photos of Harrison Ford, photos of, Elijah Wood or whatever. It's really strange. And nobody stops that. But why someone would do that is weird.
Right.
Well, I guess
they thought it would sell.
Yeah, I bet it did not. All right. If you wanted to give us a call, you could always call us, and that number is
717
219
4162.
And I love hearing your voice. You could call, you could leave a message, but when I don't hear, I worry. So give us a ringy dingy there. And of course, you can also write us. You can email us through our website. We're unpackingpeanuts@gmail.com. And you can also just keep the conversation going on social media. We're at Unpack Peanuts on Instagram and Threads.
Yep.
And we are Unpacking Peanuts on Facebook, Blue Sky, and YouTube.
Bravo.
Nailed it. All right, let's get back to the strips. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you want to follow along with this, you go over to gocomics.com, type in Peanuts 1986, and that'll take you to these strips. And then you type in the date I say, and you could read along with us. And it's all for free, which is amazing.
And it's just a couple of weeks before the debut of Tanner Rocks, right?
Oh, it's just, so just in 8 days, my new comic book, Tanner Rocks. It's part of Gville Comics Substack. You will be able to get a new monthly comic book from me for free, delivered directly to your inbox every month. It's starting with Tanner Rocks, and then it's moving on to doing my serializing my next graphic novel, which is In the Real Dark Night, a book about combating depression with creativity, and hopefully it's funny. And you can get them for free. gvillecomics.substack.com. GVILLE. Thanks for the reminder.
Looking forward to it.
All right, let's get back to the strips. October 12th. Symbolic panel there, a semi-disturbing one of Charlie Brown and Sally as ice cream cones. And then in panel 2, it picks up their ordering ice cream. And they say, Dad says when he was little, ice cream cones were only a dime. And then the strip really starts on the next tier as Charlie Brown says, I see they have butter pecan. And Sally says, what if I order it and don't like it? And Charlie Brown says, you could try pistachio almond. And Sally says, what if I order it and don't like it? And Charlie Brown says, how about mint chocolate chip? Sally says, what if I order it and don't like it? Then Sally says, I think I'd better just have vanilla. Then they walk out, enjoying their little ice cream cones. And then Charlie Brown turns to his sister and says, what's the matter? And Sally says, I don't like it.
Vanilla is way weird.
What?
No, vanilla that's an extreme flavor. So when did weird ice cream flavors come about? What year?
1984.
I don't know.
What do you think is a weird ice cream flavor?
Well, Baskin Robbins. I mean, I don't remember pistachio almond even existing. Or butter pecan.
Butter
Well,
pecan.
Butter pecan was around for quite a while. Yeah.
But butter almond is better.
Pistachio was huge. Everything was pistachio for years, and then you can't.
And they would always color it red for no good reason.
Never.
I don't know
why.
Really?
No, pistachio's green.
Well, no, you didn't grow up
of-
in the era. Those red pistachios, they would.
in
The shells, but not the ice cream.
Yeah, the ice cream was green.
Well, okay.
I know what you're talking about. There would be these there were machines, and you'd put a quarter in, and out would come a handful of dyed red pistachio nuts, dyed with red dye number 5, and you could not just separate them from the shells without it being all over your hands, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Now there's all kinds of great flavors, Michael. You got to get out there and give Mooch Tracks a try.
We had Neapolitan, which was like 3 flavors.
Yeah, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry.
Yeah, that was it.
I think she should have gotten tapioca flavor. I think she would have liked that.
October 16th, Marcie is out, and she has been playing football with Peppermint Patty. And in this instance, she has actually tied a little bow around the football just to make it a little prettier. And she says to Peppermint Patty, I'll hold the ball, sir, and you kick it. And Peppermint Patty in panel 2 says, Marcie, I'm not going to kick a ball that has a cute ribbon tied around it. And then in the next panel, Marcie says, I'll bet the icebox would. And then Peppermint Patty says, refrigerator. To which Marcie says, whatever.
So that could be an
I
obscurity.
assume this is an obscurity.
For me,
Right?
it sure is.
Peanuts obscurities explained.
Yeah, it was William the Refrigerator Perry, right?
That's correct. And this was the
Chicago.
year that the Chicago he played for the Chicago Bears, and he was like a media star, and he was just huge, just a huge guy.
Yeah. Literally.
Yes. and even scored in the Super Bowl, which always annoyed me because Walter Payton, who carried the team, didn't score, but it was a big novelty to let Fridge get a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
And whatever is always funny.
Whatever.
Don't you think?
Whatever.
It's just a great thing. What a great thing to say.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think it's funny.
And are those quotation marks necessary?
Well, in this instance, I don't know, but I like it. It's good to have quotation marks whenever you can, even if it's a gray area.
Yeah, it's a good hint if you don't know what on earth he's referring to.
Yeah. October 26th, creeping up on Halloween, and we see a pumpkin is one of those symbolic panels because it's a Sunday. And the pumpkin is apparently singing My Way by Frank Sinatra. And I did it my way, it says. And then the next panel, we see Peppermint Patty and Linus are out in the pumpkin patch. And Linus says, "This is it." And Linus continues, "On Halloween, the great pumpkin rises from the pumpkin patch and flies through the air with toys for all the children in the world." And Peppermint Patty says, "I believe you." And then she continues, "And you know what happens on Secretary's Day? The great secretary rises from her desk and rides through the city in a taxi cab with notepads for all the secretaries everywhere. And on Grandparents' Day, the great grandmother rises out of her condominium with cookies for all the grandchildren in the world." Then Peppermint Patty loses it. Ha 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 ha. Which causes Linus to reach over, pick up a pumpkin, and plop it, smack it down on Peppermint Patty's head, leaving her there with a pumpkin head. Who, as she says, "Wait, let me tell you about Mother-in-Law's Day. Where'd he go?" I like that.
The great grandmother. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Good sarcasm.
Yeah, real good. But I like that she's out there too. Still having something to do. Oh, and October 31st, it's time to check in with good old Spike.
Hey,
So
Spike.
Spike's out in the desert and he's writing his brother a letter. "Dear Snoopy, just a few lines to let you know what our Cactus Club has been doing. Last night we had a new kind of marshmallow roast." And in the last panel we see Spike sitting there with a wicked grin on his face looking at a marshmallow. And he writes to Snoopy, "We all sat around and insulted a marshmallow." That really
Here's
made
the
me
English
laugh.
language for you again.
Yeah.
I picked this one too, and when I saw you had already selected it, so it's yeah. And it's funny, roasts are still around, but they're not nearly as part of the culture as they used to be, I guess, because people are so sensitive these days. It's hard to get away with a roast and do it in a way that everyone's okay with.
Yeah, I know there was a
Man.
Tom Brady one recently that I think went askew.
Oh, no.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know anything
You
about
storm
it.
out, or
I'm not 100% sure what exactly happened, but yeah, I never got the appeal of them.
oh man, yeah, because then was it Sunday nights they would have Dean Martin celebrity roasts, and you would have a panel of these famous comedians all sitting at a table facing you, and then someone would come up to the dais or whatever, and then they would take turns insulting this guy while he's supposed to laugh uproariously at whatever terrible thing you're saying about him. I got to write on a Mystery Science Theater sketch that was doing a roast.
Well, if you want to watch a really, really funny roast, watch Norm Macdonald. I believe it's the Bob Saget roast. And he just does like corny jokes that you would read out of
Yes.
joke. Have you seen that? And then for the rest of the roast, he just sits there and reads the newspaper. Really funny.
That was wonderful.
There's a wonderful show on now called Hacks. Have you seen Hacks? Where Gene Smart plays an old-fashioned comic who gets sort of renewed by a young comedy writer, and they did a great roast episode. So watch Hacks.
Oh, neat.
Oh, nice.
Hacks. Gene Smart. Great.
Yeah, she's great.
November 1st. Charlie Brown is making some food for Snoopy, and that's what he does for 3 panels. He makes it, then he carries it outside, then he presents it to Snoopy. And then in the 4th panel, Snoopy looks at it and says, "Hum, baby."
Totally.
Okay, how about that for an obscurity?
Oh, over my head. I could not figure this out in 1,000 years.
Yeah, I had to look this one up. Did you know this, Jimmy? Do you know what on earth this was referring to?
I've heard people say
Hum
hum
baby?
baby, but I don't know what that it was from something.
So apparently the San Francisco Giants pitcher Roger Craig was famous for saying hum baby.
Roger
And
Craig?
it was an old baseball term where you were essentially encouraging usually a pitcher to just do a particularly amazing or good pitch. But apparently Roger Craig was a really genial guy, and it became incredibly catching when
Who would
people
go
hum.
around quoting old baseball players? Say, hey. All right.
Hum baby.
Now I remember if you'd stand. I don't know if this is what it is, but I remember when you'd play baseball, if you were standing behind the pitcher, you'd go like, hum baby, like that kind of thing. Like, and come on, he's no better, hum baby. Is that what he's talking about?
Is that what they're saying?
Whatever.
I think there were different versions of it. Someone said, it has to do with you're encouraging them to put a little more mustard on the fastball, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Weird.
Interesting.
I guess it was popular.
Yeah, but it's interesting that was probably a regional one. Every once in a while, we find Schulz doing these California regional jokes, and I'm assuming he knows it's not national,
Right?
But he doesn't care.
Right. Yeah, you could afford to throw one or two away out of 365 in a year.
Maybe he met him at a party or something like that and wanted to do a shout out.
Yeah,
and it's kind of cute to see Snoopy looking at his bowl full of dog food, going hum baby.
November 26th, Linus turns the TV on, and then he sits there in his beanbag chair and he watches the news. It says, "Boy, have we got bad news for you tonight." Linus says to the TV, "How bad is it?" And the TV says back to him, "We're not even going to give you the details at 11, which sends Linus ducking in his beanbag chair.
Yeah, he does that little flip, even though he's lying down.
Yeah, the rare feet up in the air, classic cartooning pose. I love that.
Very cute.
I did notice, I looked at, there were some later strips I saw, and he changes the zipatone pattern later. This one is much darker than the one he uses later.
I bet he saw how muddy it was printing in the newspaper, and he toned it back. Pardon the pun.
This is kind of the Cerebus zip, isn't it?
Well, the thing I was going to say, you can't tell by looking at it on Go Comics because it's a scan of a scan, but you have to really be careful with this because the closer the dots are together, the darker the zipatone looks. However, when it prints, you get dot bleed where it's just that, you might be indicating the dot is only this big in radius, but as soon as the ink hits the paper, it expands a microscopic amount, but that adds up.
Yeah, and GoComics.com, if you see the copyright symbol there on the left, you can see how incredibly muddy that got.
Yeah. December 8th, Linus looks like he's watching the TV, but he's actually watching the dryer. And he says to himself, "Watching your blanket tumbling around in the dryer is scary. What if it never comes out? What if it's destroyed? I shouldn't be watching." And then the last panel, he says, "It's not suitable viewing for children." That was a big Amelia line.
I thought this was a rerun at first. He looks a little younger here.
Yeah, he does.
What about Amelia?
I used to say, childhood isn't suitable for children. I think there's a line specifically in Amelia where she says that. But I know he used to say it in interviews because it was a good line that always got pulled out.
I don't think I ever washed my blanket. I think that would have messed up its texture.
Yeah, its vibe.
Is it kind of like those iron skillets where you're supposed to season the skillet? Yeah.
December 28th. It's a Sunday. We picked a lot of Sundays this week. And we have a symbolic panel of the various Beagle Scouts and Sally and Snoopy on a Christmas tree as ornaments. And then when it really starts up, we look at Sally, who is looking at a Christmas tree with a quizzical expression on her face. And she goes in to see her brother, Charlie Brown, and says, "Where are all the candy canes?" And Charlie Brown says, "The what?" And Sally says, "The candy canes that were on the tree. They're gone." And Charlie Brown says, "Have you looked outside?" Sally says, "Outside?" And she does, in fact, look outside. And then we see Snoopy and 3 of the Beagle Scouts are using them as putting on the Ritz canes and doing a little top hat dance.
Cute. Very cute.
It is very
It's
cute.
cute. Yeah, well, we know where they got the canes. We don't know where they got the bow tie and the top hats.
Well, everybody
But-
has those laying around. They're just ready to go.
I love the way that Schulz draws the Christmas tree in the third panel, where it's you just see the outline of the branches, and then he's floating all of these ornaments on the tree, but he only shows the branches coming out in profile. And it's just in black and white. It's a really cool look.
Yeah. I love the little ornaments that he's drawn too. The little rocking horse and the little house, and it almost looks like a dreidel.
Yeah.
Very cute drawing. That's great. It's a good year. So that brings us to the end of 1986. We'll be back next week where we're talking about 1987, which is going to be just as much fun as this year, only 1 year closer to the present. If you want to keep that conversation going, because remember, I worry when I don't hear, you can email us. You can email us right at unpackingpeanuts@gmail.com. You can follow us on our social media. On Blue Sky, Facebook, and YouTube, we're Unpacking Peanuts. And on Threads and Instagram, we're at Unpack Peanuts. And of course, we'd love to hear from you. You can also go on to our website, sign up for the Great Peanuts Reread. That will give you one email a month from us where we let you know ahead of time what we're going to be covering. So that's it. All I need from the guys is your strip of the year and your most valuable peanut. Harold, why don't you go first?
Oh, boy. Why don't I not go first?
Michael, why don't you go first?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for action.
All right, go for it.
Going back to the beginning of this episode, strip of the year, I really think that July 20th is just brilliant cartooning. Snoopy backing off from Linus's threat and backs all the way out of the house, across the yard, up the doghouse, and very funny. Lucy watches him scooting backwards.
That is such a great strip. So funny. And who are you going to go for your MVP?
I got to go with Linus. Linus was probably my favorite character through the 50s and 60s. Hadn't been doing much since then. And he's coming back pretty strong this year. I mean, he's back with the blanket. Yeah, so I think to welcome him back, I'm giving him the MVP.
Nice. Harold, how about you?
Well, I'm in an odd mood this year, so I think I'm going to give it to Charlie Brown, who I'm kind of enjoying his elder statesman kind of feel he's got this year. And when he's thinking about, on April 11th, he's thinking about those car chases and how nobody helps pick up the oranges.
That's a good one.
But character of the year, well, to me, it's obvious. It's Tapioca Pudding.
Tapioca Pudding for the win. You know, she's big in licensing, I hear.
That's what I hear. She's going to make $1 million.
Okay, I'm going to go with June 14th. Charlie Brown saying, I've always liked vanilla. Just because that really cracked me up. And he is a vanilla guy. And I have to say, I always like vanilla too. And I'm going to give VIP to Sally.
Yeah.
Or MVP rather to Sally, because like Michael said, she has a good comeback this year as well. And so we got a 3-way split between Linus, Sally, and Tapioca Pudding. And that is the kind of hot takes you come to this podcast for. So that's it for now. Just come back next week and we'll do it all again. It's my favorite day of the week, and I hope to see you then. So until then, for Michael, Harold, and Liz, this is Jimmy saying, be of good cheer.
Yes.
Be of good cheer. Unpacking Peanuts is copyright Jimmy Gownley, Michael Cohen, and Harold Buckholtz. Produced and edited by Liz Sumner. Music by Michael Cohen. Additional voiceover by Aziza Shakrala Clark. For more from the show, follow Unpack Peanuts on Instagram and Threads. Unpacking Peanuts on Facebook, Blue Sky, and YouTube. For more about Jimmy, Michael, and Harold, visit unpackingpeanuts.com. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.
Bravo.